So we're here today in the kitchen of Chef Willemina. What are we making today, Chef Willemina?
Dutch tomato basil soup with mini meatballs.
And we're making it in...
The pressure cooker.
What type of pressure cooker is it?
It's an Instapot.
Ah, and they sponsored this? No sponsorship at all. So what do we do first?
Sponsored by the quarantine.
So what are we doing first?
First thing we have to do is peel the tomatoes.
And how do we do that?
First thing we need to do is we have a pan of simmering water. Let me just lower this temperature a little bit. This is an induction burner by, what's the name of this one again? Oh, Berghoff. Berghoff induction burner.
A Berghoff induction burner with Berghoff pans on it too.
Okay, we're going to score these tomatoes just ever so slightly, just enough to break the skin. And then we're going to put the tomato in the boiling water.
Being careful not to burn yourself.
They say you can put more than one in at a time. I got time to spare. So, okay, they have to go in for about 30 seconds or until you see that the top here where you scored it, that you can see that the skin starts peeling back. So 30 seconds is really a nominal type of thing. It's more about the skin peeling back. So.
And you don't want to leave them in too long, I guess.
No, because then they start cooking. You don't really want to cook it. You just want to peel them. So.
Okay.
You also should have a bowl of ice water standing by. Mine's in the sink, ready to go. It's actually amazing how well this works. Okay, it's been about a minute and a half now. That's kind of what you want to see there. See how it's starting to separate and pull? I'm taking it out, making sure I don't get any hot water on my feet. Putting it in the ice water right over here. And it got the bowl for the pressure cooker standing by right here too, the pan for the pressure cooker, and I've got a little bone because I'm going to de-seed these a little bit because we really don't want all those seeds in it. So this is cooled off a little bit, and as you can see, if you start peeling that back, look at how nicely that peels back, just like that. And I'm just doing it, leaving it in my sink because this is my sink that's got the garbage disposal in it. So eventually it'll all go down the disposal. But peeling a tomato is just as easy as that. So I mean, once you got this down, you can do other things like make your own tomato sauce, or if it's tomato time in tomato season. So I'm going to cut off the little heel of this, and then we're going to cut it on the equator of the. And if you see that's got some seeds there, I'm just going to kind of pull them out.
That'll make for a more pleasant soup.
You're not encountering seeds everywhere you go, even though we're going to use the plunge blender.
So you've already done quite a few tomatoes. How many tomatoes are you going to be using?
This is a double recipe I'm making, so I'm using 12 tomatoes, and I'm going to be using a box of beef broth in here as well.
Any particular type of tomato?
Yeah, preferably the Roma or Plum tomatoes, which are the same thing. The Roma is just a different style of tomato. So I'm going to continue doing that for the rest of the 5 tomatoes I've got left to do.
Okay, and then we'll join you when those are done.
Okay.
So we're back with Chef Willemina. It's been no time for you, but we've had this paused for a while. In the meantime, all dozen plum tomatoes have been peeled and seeds removed and roughly quartered.
Yep.
What else have you done? You've grated. How many cloves of garlic?
There would be 4 cloves of garlic in there because I've doubled, again, like I said, I've doubled the
Okay, so it'd be
the recipe. So for one recipe, it would be 2 cloves of garlic and 1 onion, and
now you're dicing
2 onions.
2
and
onions
4
for the
cloves
double batch.
Right, And by the way, a helpful hint is that peeling the tomatoes trick works for any kind of tomato, not just Roma tomatoes. So, okay, now normally I would have had this on saute on the Instapot, but
This being the vegetables.
the onions and the garlic, but because I've already got the tomatoes in here, I have to saute these separately, but that's not a problem. So we're going to put a little bit of oil in the pan that's over here, and we're going to saute and cook up these, make these tender.
All right, let's follow you to the induction burner again.
Okay, turn it on, grab my oil, excuse me, I forgot to grab the oil.
Quite a selection of spices and
I
herbs.
missed that one in full time, I think. A little bit of oil in there. First thing that will go in is the onions.
Because the garlic cooks faster and we don't want to burn the garlic.
So, onions go in.
And we're just going to cook them till they're translucent, is that right?
Yes. And looking for a wooden spoon that my dog has not eaten.
Ah yes, we have a dog that likes to run off with wooden spoons and chew on them.
Okay, now as far as these are concerned, because everything's going to be done with the
Immersion blender?
immersion blender, they don't have to be super all one size or anything like that. They should be close to it so that they cook evenly, but they don't have to be super sized. So these are getting, you'll notice that these are starting to get a little translucent. It's time to add and they're starting to smell really good, by the way. I'm going to add time to add the 4 cloves of garlic all grated up and throw them in the mix.
In this kitchen, any good recipe starts with garlic and onion.
Mix that in there and stir it up a little bit. And because they're being cooked in the pressure cooker, they don't require a lot of cooking per se. You just need to release their flavor a little bit. So, okay, looks like we're ready to roll on this one.
And what's the next step?
Next step, let's put the tomatoes in the pressure cooker and come along with those. Bring that forward a little bit. Is the pressure cooker plugged in? It's the next question. It's always important to have your electrical items plugged in. It is plugged in. Okay. Oh, yep, light goes on. Okay, I'm going to put this mixture in there too. And then we're going to take... Now the reason I doubled the recipe is because...
Because we're in quarantine?
Well, that too, but this way I don't have to measure out stuff from the box of broth. I can just pour the whole box of broth in there.
For a single batch, single
recipe.
recipe, thank you, it would be half a box of beef broth.
This way I just get to pour the whole, this is any kind of beef broth that you want. Happened that this one was buy one get one half off at Publix, so, or no, buy one get one, I'm sorry. Buy one get one half off at Publix, buy one get one free at Publix. It's Kohl's that does buy one get one half off.
Gotta love the Publix BOGOs. You just pour the whole thing in.
Whole thing gets poured into the pot. Okay. Now, we've got to set this. This goes in the recycle. We've got to put the lid on it. I've always had challenge putting the lids on. Hang on. No. There it goes. Okay, so
All right, tell you what, let's swap sides and you set it up and I'll film it.
okay, so it's already on pressure cook.
And how many minutes are you going to do that
I'm going
for?
to do it for, actually, I'm going to leave it at the 6 minutes. It's probably overkill, but it doesn't really matter. It's all the flavor and nutrients stay in it with the pressure cooker anyway. So, 6 minutes.
And you want high pressure?
Oh. Yeah, I want high pressure. I want it delay off. I don't want to delay. I don't want to keep warm on either.
Well, does it matter?
No, it doesn't really matter.
All right, so we're
Press
just going to press
go.
start.
And we're going to wait for it to do its little beeping trick, and it's going to let us know when it's 6 minutes is down after it comes up to full steam. And the other thing to check is to make sure that your little valve on the top is set to not let any steam out, which it appears it is. Okay,
All
now
right.
in the meanwhile, you could prepare the meatballs.
Oh, there's meatballs in
There's
it.
meatballs in it. So
And is the meatballs part of what makes this different than the Dutch style soup, different than others?
Yeah, you can also, if you want, I've had the Dutch soup that's, they put vermicelli in it, which is like this thin noodles that they just crunch up into, like basically put your hands in it and crunch it up. So you can put the noodles in it if you want to, but I always grew up with the Dutch tomato soup with the baby teeny tiny meatballs in it. So it was always a little exploration to find all the meatballs. So,
Sounds delicious.
okay. Well, let's do that then.
All right, so what have we got here now?
So now here we've got the stuff to make the meatballs. There's parsley that I've chopped up, fresh parsley. There's basil. There's oregano. It also calls for salt, pepper, and breadcrumbs, but instead, in lieu of that, I'm cheating a little bit. I'm taking stuffing mix that I had left over in the cupboard, and I'm going to be crushing this. It needs about 4 tablespoons of it. And then it needs about 12 ounces of ground meat. So what I'm going to
So somewhere between 10 and 12 ounces for a double recipe.
Yes.
Okay.
So now normally I would weigh it, but seeing as this is a pound exactly, I can just take about 3/4 of it, and I know how much I'm looking for. And yes, I know I'm handling meat with my bare hands. I'll wash them. I've been doing enough of that lately anyway, so the rest of this will be wrapped and put back in the fridge. So, calls for, it says a teaspoon of parsley. I'm going to be a little bit generous. There you go. And then the doggies get the leftover parsley because that's good for their tummies. Yeah. Nice thing about having a dog, you never have to clean the floor, except when they drag in branches and stuff like that. Then you have to. Okay. So
And that doggy, that's Connor, our 10-month-old standard poodle puppy.
okay, so
How much oregano?
teaspoon of oregano. This is basil.
Oh, basil. Basil.
Basil. There's a teaspoon of basil. There's a teaspoon of oregano. Ooh, that smells good. And then what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to crunch that coronavirus right out of here.
Take out your aggression on the breadcrumbs.
And let me check and see, is that does it take 4 tablespoons or 4 teaspoons in the recipe?
Well, that's a good question because
The recipe's in Dutch.
the recipe's in Dutch.
There is we'll send the link to you guys. There is a button to click to get it translated into English. But it's for regular, it's not not to make in the pressure cooker. That's my little added bonus feature for this. So let me just check and see.
Twee eteltjes.
Okay, yeah, that's a tablespoon. So
That would be for a single. So, all right.
before
What we're making is bolletjes,
4
which means
tablespoons.
little balls.
Okay, 1, 2, 3,
And I notice you're doing generous tablespoons.
4. Yeah. Okay. Just gonna put that over there and take my ring off, because that's the last thing I want is turkey meat in my ring. I'm using my hand and mix it all in there. Don't need the salt and pepper that the rest calls for, because that's already included in the
Stuffing
in
mix
the
we
stuffing
used
mix.
as breadcrumbs.
Yes.
And we used the stuffing mix instead of breadcrumbs because that's what we had in, and we're kind of stuck in the house. This being 2020 after all.
Okay, so then after this, I've got to figure out how to make little teeny weeny meatballs.
All right, we're going to put it on pause while you do that. All right, we've got the meat all mixed up, and you have there a number 40 food scoop, purple handle, which is 0.86 ounces.
Okay, and from here, I'm going to cut this one here. These really are mini meatballs. So I'm going to cut these in 4. Roll them up and put them on the plate, ready to go on or in the pot, which I just heard beep, by the way, that it was started at 6 minutes. So that's what we're going to do for the next little while, is scoop and roll some meatballs. Now you can use any kind of ground meat with this. It happened that Mr. Flowers bought some ground turkey, so that's what we're working with. Ground beef is always good, ground pork is always good. Any ground meat is good. I'm just going to scoop up a bunch of scoops of meat first and then cut and roll. Kind of like a rock and roll, but not. Okay.
Should note that this is known as a disher, also commonly called a food scoop. It's not to be confused with an ice cream scoop, which is something very different. And
That's strong.
this is the basically the smallest of the various size dishers or food scoops, which are common in the restaurant industry. We find them very handy for getting even portions of things like cookies and
Muffins.
other muffins. Yeah, when you're putting muffin mix in the pan. We have 3 different sizes in our house, and they get regular use. So the 2 sizes that we find useful is a number 12, which is 3 1/4 ounces, has a green handle, and a number 24, 1 3/4 ounces, which has a red handle. They have them even bigger. All right, the tomatoes have finished cooking in the beef broth along with the garlic and onions. And we're letting the pressure off the Instapot. Steam is going up the vent hood. I have a nice plate full of mini meatballs. These are about the size that you'd find in an Italian wedding soup, aren't they?
Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger, but not. Of course, I've never had real from scratch Italian wedding soup, so. Steam has been let off. I'm going to turn the fan off so you don't hear that in the background. And listen to that.
And it's still locked.
It's still locked. Oh no. There we go. Okay. Always
And that's what it looks like right now.
away from you.
Still very chunky. Now, what are you going to do?
Now we have to use the immersion blender, and this is when we're going to turn it into the soup part of the soup. And then we add the meatballs. Because if we did this after we added the meatballs, then that would be, what's the sense of me making the meatballs? So here we go.
Now, how well do you want this blended?
Oh, there's a problem. You said we had tomato paste.
We do have tomato
We
paste.
needed to add tomato paste for the recipe.
Well, then let's get the tomato paste in there for what it can cook in while the
Pause, please.
meatballs are cooking. All right, here's the forgotten tomato paste. How much are we putting in?
3 teaspoons per recipe. So that's 6 teaspoons total. I'm being a little bit generous because it's not all coming out of the...
And 6 teaspoons is the same as 2 tablespoons.
What was that? 4 or 5? 4. You know, that's the good thing about about cooking. It's not like baking. You don't have to be super precise with everything, so. Okay, missing ingredient has been added. Okay, here we go again with the...
What about all the stuff that's stuck on the side?
I don't know, I keep fogging up every time I look at it, so I'm going to turn it around. Oh, it's okay. Now, the nice thing about there's a reason it's I call it Dutch tomato soup too, is just like the texture is way different. North Americans got usually they like more creamy stuff and different flavors in it, so you'll love this though, guys. So now what do? Now we're going to dump in the meatballs. Die. They're all committed suicide. It's like that commercial, you know, where they have to jump into the volcano to
make it rain.
to make it rain.
The meatballs have to jump into the
Yeah.
into the
You
pot
have
to make
be
it soup.
careful. Be careful because when they splurp, you're going to get hot tomato sauce, and I swear tomato sauce is hotter than... Okay, they all get in there. Okay, so the next thing to do is put the lid back on, and then we're going to cook it up. Probably, I'm going to err on the side of caution, and I'm going to put it for... Oh, I did it right this time. Is it plugged in?
Mm-hmm. Should be.
It didn't make that noise.
Well, we have some technical difficulties. Be right back.
Okay.
So the cord had just pulled out of the back of the Instant Pot, and we wondered why it wouldn't turn on. So we're
Okay.
going to go for more.
We're going to go for another 6 minutes again. So everything's already set up in the previous 6 minutes. So the only thing we have to do at this point is make sure it's on high and press the start button. And I didn't hear anything. It's supposed to beep when you... There we go. It says it's on. Now we're going to wait the requisite time. It won't take as long to heat up this time because it's still pretty hot. And 6 minutes should cook up those meatballs pretty easily.
Okay, we'll be back in 6 minutes.
Well, maybe 10.
All right, the meatballs should be fully cooked.
Ooh, look at them floating on the top.
And this is the importance of mise en place, which means everything in its place, basically getting all your ingredients together before you start doing anything. We forgot to add salt and pepper, so we're going to add it to taste.
It's actually not bad already. Won't need much more.
Well, the stuffing mix we used in place of breadcrumbs probably had a reasonable amount of seasoning in it. So just some kosher salt, some black peppercorns ground into it.
Tastes good to me. Want to taste it?
Did you just stick the spoon that you licked back in the
Yep,
pot?
I did. It's hot.
Well, it's a good thing we're not sharing it with anyone but the two of us, and we have been sharing the same germs for 38 years now.
Okay, so what do you think?
That tastes delicious to me. I'd say let's dish it out and eat. Oh, look at those meatballs.
Now if you wanted, if you had some fresh parsley or some fresh basil, put on top of this. I suppose you could always add a little sprinkle of cheese or something to this too, but
Grate some Parmesan over it.
yeah. But then that wouldn't be Dutch soup anymore.
It'd be a Dutch-Italian hybrid.
Yep. There. A little more juice. And we got lunch for the next week.
Wonderful. Maybe a slice of bread to go with it.
Oh,
Maybe
grilled
some
cheese
nice
sandwich.
sourdough. Oh, grilled cheese.
Oh, okay. As the Dutch say, eet smakelijk.